Okay, let's get into this. We're looking at Guy Lakeman's blueprint for building high-performance AI teams. And this is not just, another management guide. It feels much more like structural design. We're doing a deep dive into his framework, AI Steward Team Leadership.
That's right. And when you actually dig into the source material, the mission statement is, well, it's incredibly rigorous. It's all about fighting what he calls bureaucratic collapse.
Right.
And he wants to do that by creating a system for the, and I'm quoting here, scientific determination of productive truth.
That is a mouthful. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's a fancy way of saying, let's stop making huge decisions based on politics or just bad assumptions.
Okay.
And instead, find a verifiable, actionable consensus on what is actually going on.
I love that goal.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't? But here's where it gets, for me, immediately surprising. And frankly, this is what hooked me. Lakeman builds this entire thing around rock, paper, scissors.
Yes. The childhood game.
But he says the key to making it work for a team is to make the game transitive.
Exactly. The normal game, it's cyclic. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper beats rock.
And that cycle, in his view, is a recipe for disaster in a company.
A total disaster. He argues it creates these endless, inconclusive loops of authority and accountability. The whole goal is to establish a clear, unbreakable, transitive chain of command.
And the leaders who do this, they're not just called managers. He gives them these very specific, almost grand titles.
Oh, absolutely. The team leader is the monitor, the steward, and the warden, essentially the chairman. And their job isn't to, oversee daily tasks. It's to maintain the integrity of the process itself. They are guardians of the framework.
So they're making sure the team doesn't just get lost in the weeds.
Exactly. Lost in internal fights or, and this is key, documentation overload.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of that, the core metaphor. We need to define rock, scissors, and paper in this context.
Yes, we have to be crystal clear. So the RSCK is the leader, the chairman, the main solid component.
The foundation.
It is. The rock represents the solid focus, hypothesis, and purpose of existence. It's the why for the whole team. And critically, the rock has to maintain full, undeniable control.
Okay, but when I hear full control, my mind immediately goes to, a dictator.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that? Especially in what's supposed to be an agile, high-performance team.
That's a great question, and it's the challenge the framework tackles right away. Control here isn't micromanagement. It's control over policy and purpose.
Nice.
The rock makes sure the why is never compromised. The execution, that's handled by the scissors.
And who are the scissors?
They're the directors and officers, and their job is very, very specific, to trim the paper.
So they're the operational force, the ones streamlining everything.
Which brings us to the paper. What's that?
Paper is the creator, it's documentation, it's the real-time production status updates. And honestly, this is where most modern organizations just fall down.
Especially in data-heavy fields like AI.
Exactly. The paper just grows and grows, right?
Right, yeah.
It becomes this archive bureaucracy instead of a tool you can actually use. The critique of bureaucracy is really powerful here. The source is insistent that paper has to be aggressively trimmed. What does that actually look like day to day?
Trimming means making sure that documentation is lean, unambiguous, and definitive. And crucially, it has to be relational indexed.
What does relational indexed mean?
It means the data isn't just stored somewhere in a folder. It's indexed, so it provides keen, immediate action pointers.
So it's actionable.
Yes. If a document doesn't clearly point to a mission objective or a next step, the scissors have to trim it, or at least abstract it out of the main operational flow. It's all about quality, not quantity. Giving a leader a dashboard, not a filing cabinet.
So that brings us to the core mechanic, the transition. In a failing system, you have rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper beats rock.
The loop. The RSPR loop, yes.
But for success, he said we need a transitive process. Rock, scissors, paper. But paper is less than rock. That final inequality is everything. Why is that so vital?
Because that is the entire foundation. If paper is allowed to cover the rock, if documentation and process overwhelm the actual policy and purpose, the whole system just collapses into inertia.
So the rock has to control the paper, not the other way around.
Precisely. Policy should never be defined by the documents. The documents have to be defined by the policy.
And what are the real-world ways to enforce that?
Yeah.
How do you keep the rock from getting swamped?
It's done through really strict approval rules, mandatory abstraction layers, and automated tools, often an AI monitor, which we can get to later.
Okay.
Basically, the ROC sets the strict parameters for what even qualifies as actionable data. If it's too vague, too much of it, or just irrelevant to the core why, the system defaults to trimming it.
It's a built-in defense mechanism against noise.
It is. The source points out that this overpowering by paper is the trademark of government-style bureaucracy,
Right.
where all that extra documentation is just used to create litigation and slow everything down until the organization just goes extinct.
So the ultimate failure is being buried alive in your own internal memos.
That's a perfect way to put it. The goal is to prevent that self-destruction. This is why the foundational priority is this unbroken, up-down waterfall chain of command.
And that chain is sacred.
Absolutely. It can only be changed in two ways, either a top-down blanket command from the ROC, or anyone in the chain can push an alarm button for a critical issue that needs immediate attention. No middle ground negotiation.
That structure is very clean. Rocks, scissors, paper.
Uh,
But, as an organization grows, things get more complicated. New variables, new threats.
of course.
So let's get into that refinement stage, where he introduces 3 new elements to, quote, raise the rock by refinement. We're talking about spiavec, fire, and water.
And this is where the framework gets really philosophical. It's defining these abstract forces that have to be managed structurally.
Let's start with the obvious one, CFACK.
As you'd guess, SBOCK represents cool logic. It's the integration of new developments.
But new logic, new ideas, they aren't very useful if they're just theoretical, right?
Exactly right. The source really emphasizes that SBOCK requires scissors to be effective.
Meaning?
Meaning new logical developments, a new algorithm, a new research path, they have to be immediately streamlined and vetted by the directors, the scissors.
So if Spock operates without the scissors,
It just creates more untrimmed paper, more ideas with no action plan.
that's a fascinating constraint.
Mm.
Okay, let's talk about them more. High-stakes forces, fire and water. Start with fire.
Fire is defined as the element that destroys but also melts ice.
So in a business, that would be
What?
disruptive forces.
Yes. High-risk investments, a rapid pivot in technology, or even necessary destructive actions like killing an outdated project. It's that necessary but dangerous transformative force.
Water sounds like it must be the counterbalance.
It is. Water quenches the fire. It acts as security, legal oversight, risk management. It gets absorbed to provide that protection from fire. But here's the crucial detail that ties it all back. Water also rusts the scissors.
It rusts the scissors. Now that sounds like you're intentionally sabotaging your own operational team. What does that represent?
It represents necessary friction.
Okay.
It's the intentional slowing down that's required for things like compliance and due diligence. For example, your legal department, Water, might need to slow down the operational directors, the scissors, who are moving too fast with the disruptive new tech, the fire.
So it's quality assurance. It's regulatory oversight.
Exactly. It's making sure that speed doesn't compromise safety or long-term viability. The system acknowledges that this necessary oversight comes with a cost, and that cost is slowness.
So these elements aren't just departments. They're abstract forces that define the acceptable tensions within the company. And this is where the AI really comes in.
Absolutely. The AI monitor isn't there to manage people. It's there to manage these abstract interactions.
How does it do that?
You have to feed the AI the specific tuned meanings of rock, paper, scissors, Spock, fire, and water, all customized to your team's specific purpose. Once it understands those, the AI can provide support, it can provide predictions.
Signaling when, say, the fire is getting too big or the water is rusting the scissors too much.
Precisely. The system becomes measurable and predictable.
Okay, we spent a lot of time in the abstract. Let's make this practical. How does the leader, the steward, actually assemble and run this team? Because the structure is only as good as the people you put in it.
The very first step is actually about avoidance. You have to avoid disaster at the first hurdle by bringing in people who are incompatible.
So how do you do that?
The source is very clear on this. Team members are best chosen from previous successful teams. Or, at the very least, they should be recommended by trusted colleagues with a proven track record.
You're reducing the friction of just getting people to work together.
Exactly, and ensuring a baseline competence.
So once you have the team, how does the steward delegate responsibility without just falling back into old-school micromanagement?
The delegation is hyper-specific. The leader gives detailed instructions to specialist agents and assigns them sole responsibility.
Sole responsibility.
Yes. And that includes assigning their interaction weights within this whole structure. So a specialist on documentation, on paper, might have a high interaction weight with the directors, the scissors, for feedback.
But a low one with other creators to prevent duplication.
You've got it, to prevent duplication.
That seems incredibly rigid, though. Assigning sole responsibility. What happens if someone hits a wall?
And that's where the empowerment part comes in. While the responsibility is sole, the execution path is flexible. The source advises that the leader should let the team choose each other's tasks.
Why?
Because the people at the coalface of progress, as he puts it, they often have the best idea of who is suited for the next piece of work. It stops the leader from being a bottleneck in the daily flow.
So that defines the leader's role really clearly. They're the steward, not the general in the battlefield.
Precisely. The leader has to be the assistant firefighter and the detail advisor, just making sure the system runs. The source is so explicit on this, they should never put themselves in the critical path.
Or a time lock situation.
Right.
Never. If the team is waiting on the leader to make a decision, the system is broken. Because now the rock is trying to act as scissors or paper.
The big enemy here seems to be inertia, that slow death of big organizations. How does this framework actively fight that?
It fights it by dividing these big, top-heavy tasks into agile, low-inertia modules. Think of it like microservices in software, but for organizational tasks.
Right.
These modules have to have high connectivity so everyone knows what's going on, but each one has a well-defined responsibility to avoid duplication. If a module can't clearly define its output, it's considered high inertia and it has to be broken down even further.
With all these complex roles, rock, paper, scissors, and then these abstract forces, Spock, fire, water, communication has to be just paramount. How do you keep everyone on the same page?
The source material focuses on dedicated, regular brainstorming sessions. And in those sessions, the priority is absolute clarity.
How so?
When you discuss any event or requirement, the team has to describe it graphically and mathematically.
So it's visual and unambiguous.
The goal is total alignment. If a director, a scissors, is talking about trimming documentation, that status has to be represented in a way that the leader, the rock, can instantly understand without reading pages of text. And that visual data feeds right back into the AI monitoring system.
Okay, that makes sense. That moves us from the organizational design to the human element, because even the best machine needs good fuel.
Let's talk about the 5 essential qualities of the AI team leader. What does the steward need to be as a person to make this work?
Right, the structure is a tool, but the leader is the one who stewards the ethical foundation. So the first quality is non-negotiable. Integrity and ethics,
Being honest, responsible.
and proactively building trust. The source really emphasizes setting a foundation to do no harm to others, which is, pretty critical in an AI environment.
Absolutely. Second is clear communication, which we've touched on.
Right. Articulating the vision, yes, but also being a really strong, engaged listener. If the rock isn't listening to the data coming back through the paper, the whole transitive structure fails. Third, empathy and self-awareness.
Understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, of course, but also connecting with the needs of your team. Recognizing that your directors might be experiencing that necessary friction, the water rusting their tools, and managing that tension with compassion.
Number 4 is resilience and adaptability. This seems vital when you're dealing with fire.
Oh, it is. It's about bouncing back from setbacks, being willing to adjust strategies when the AI monitor flags a problem, and just being comfortable with uncertainty. The rock has to be solid, not brittle.
And the 5th and final quality, vision and decisiveness.
And this brings us right back to the rock's core purpose. You need a clear sense of direction, the why, and the ability to make well-reasoned, timely decisions without hesitating. That's what empowers the team.
Beyond those personal qualities, the framework also gives 5 practical building blocks for creating the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to focus on shared accountability, not hierarchy.
That's right. They start with the basics. Define purpose, set clear roles, establish ground rules, the foundation. Then you build trust. Encourage open dialogue. Be that harmonizing influence that can mediate between, say, fire and water.
And the 3rd block is a big one. Delegate autonomy.
So important. Teach people how to solve problems. Don't solve the problems for them.
Which, again, keeps the leader from becoming the bottleneck.
Exactly. The 4th block is promote shared accountability. The whole team owns successes and failures collectively. It reinforces that the rock governs the structure, but a failure is a systemic issue, not a personal one.
And the last one.
Seek and give feedback, monitor, and adapt. It's a culture of constant, continuous tuning.
So if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out how to implement these ideas, what does this highly structured metaphorical framework actually deliver in the end?
It delivers, I think, a blueprint for organizational survival. It's a radical defense mechanism. It's designed to ensure that in an environment that is so focused on data on the paper that the leadership, the rock, keeps its decisiveness and stays focused on its core purpose.
So it's about avoiding that slow, insidious death by bureaucracy.
It is. It defines the process integrity you need for truly high performance.
And the ultimate goal, as Lakeman says, is for every team to strive to be the best on their chosen path to success. The system really elevates the leader from just a reactive manager to a strategic steward.
A steward of the process, ensuring that integrity stays intact by clearly defining all the forces at play.
And that integrity really depends on defining those abstract elements correctly for your mission.
Completely.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you, our listener. The system requires the leader to tune the meanings of SPOCK for logic, fire for destruction, and water for protection to suit the team's specific purpose. So think about this. Considering the operational reality of your own organization, maybe it's legal compliance or rapid R&D or external security threats, how would you define the precise operational tuning of those three abstract concepts to feed into an AI monitor? Think about that as you define your own ROC's foundation.